This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Aaron McCarthy comes back with Neal in front of him. McCarthy draws. McCarthy in. McCarthy scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarthy!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant. I am one of your hosts, Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. And sitting across from me, sliding that dial slowly down, John the Doc Macaroon. It's good to see your face again.
Must be a big week. You showed up in studio, just how I like it. I obviously missed you, man, but you know, when it comes time to deliver, the DOC was able to hold it down. You know that you got a seat here anytime you want. I told everybody, look, Jason's got a lot of things going on. He's doing big things for the family, for himself, and whenever he gets an opportunity, whether it be via the telephone or whether it be here in studio, you know Jason's part of the network. You can follow him on Twitter at Jarvie the King. You can follow us at Detroit Podcast. I can't wait to break down Michigan State with you. Second half of the podcast, we'll talk about the Detroit Lions a little bit. You know, they're coming off of the bye week, and they're playing a Miami team that looked pretty good versus the Chicago Bears getting that victory. So a little bit nervous. The Lions 2-3, they need this win. And anytime it's a must-win situation, we got to be careful with the Detroit Lions. And I want to end the podcast getting your thoughts. We talked a little bit before the show about the Red Wings, and I want to get your thoughts on the winless Detroit Red Wings. But this portion of the show is brought to you by the Motor City Pawnbrokers. Motor City Pawnbrokers is the one-stop pawn shop when you're in need of short-term cash or are looking for a quality, brand name, new and pre-owned merchandise. With locations in Detroit, Ferndale, Roseville, and Warren, their mission is to deliver exceptional value. Go check them out. Get information about Motor City Pawn by going to motorcitypawnbrokers.com. Jason, how surprised were you? Michigan State, everybody, national media, us, radio, print, when the Michigan State Spartans lost on homecoming to Northwestern, they went on the road to Penn State, and everybody was just like, oh, it's going to be an ass-kicking, it's going to be terrible, Michigan State's injured, and you look at that contest and you go, wow, Penn State's coming off of a bye. There was no real logical reason for Michigan State to go to Happy Valley and get the victory on the road. Yet here we are, talking about Michigan State in glowing terms because of the fact that, again, Mark D'Antonio, against all odds, was able to take a depleted squad, go to Happy Valley, and get the W. And really, I'm thankful he did that because now this week, in talking about Michigan State, makes it a little bit more exciting, a little bit more hope in the camp of Michigan State in terms of their ability to compete with the Wolverines. But how shocked were you? Michigan State rolled up into Happy Valley and got the W.
Yeah, I started watching that game, and like almost immediately into the game, they throw up the graphic of all the guys that didn't travel with the team to Penn State. And I thought immediately at that point that there's no way that we're going to be able to do anything. That, you know, Penn State, they've been shaky, and, you know, they were coming off a loss to Ohio State. So they're not going to want to, you know, lose another game to a Big Ten East opponent. So you figure you're just going to get manhandled in Happy Valley. So it wasn't that impressive. I think this is what Michigan State does, is that they hang around against really good teams. They're able to compete. They're not going to get blown out unless, you know, they're going to go and play Alabama. Alabama's going to blow them out. But I think they're able to stick around, and they're able to be pesky with teams. I think Penn State, they're also a little overrated. You know, last year they had Saquon Barkley pretty much covered all of their mistakes. Saquon Barkley is I'm going to go as far to say a once-in-a-lifetime generation. He's going to be really good in the NFL. But this year, their running back, not as good, even though he was able to break some, you know, gigantic runs at Michigan State. Trace McSorley, he might be a decent college quarterback, but that guy's not going to make it in the NFL. So I wasn't terribly surprised that come fourth quarter that Michigan State's still in it. I still expected, though, Penn State to just be able to hold on to a win because they're at home. Our offense has been fairly inept. We have the fifth and sixth and seventh guys coming in at wide receiver because we're so depleted. They just were able to get it done, and that's what Michigan State does. They somehow are able to get it done.
Give credit to Mark D'Antonio and that staff for making some adjustments. Obviously, the trick plays, the fake punt, the fake field goal. They tried to do their absolute best to show some razzle dazzle. They're
doing everything they can to win.
Exactly, everything they can with that depleted lineup. But I want to give credit to Mark D'Antonio for keeping everybody together, because after you lose a game like that, everybody was talking down on him. They were actually talking about him as the leader of that program, whether it was time to maybe think about moving on. And we'll talk about that too, the reaction about overall Mark D'Antonio's job and his status with the program. But also too, in that game specifically, Penn State did a lot to lose that game because they had the lead. They had the ball late, and they
dropped a pick too.
Yeah, they dropped several picks. There were several key plays that Penn State could have made, and they didn't. And especially if you just want to pinpoint that last drive that they had offensively, Trace McSorley goes out of bounds, and inexcusably, they took barely any time off, and they gave Michigan State that opportunity. Granted, look, you have to give State credit for going down and marching down the field, and Lewerke for throwing the touchdown pass. So give all credit to Michigan State, but if you're a Penn State supporter, you got to be angry at James Franklin, because another loss really is at his feet because of the mistakes that were made late. And again, it's really tough. Those big game moments late in games, you got to handle your business. You got to be poised and you got to execute. Penn State did not at all. But I want to ask you this, because, people really back and forth when Michigan State has a big win or they have a big loss. People are talking about Mark D'Antonio, and they're saying, look, was the criticism fair? Was the amount of vitriol fair that was levied upon him, his assistants? People talking about maybe him losing his job or being needed to be replaced. And people were also saying, look, now that they got the big victory, they come back around and saying, look, we as fans of Michigan State should be appreciative more of Mark D'Antonio because of the fact that, hey, look, prior to him getting here, there was John L. Smith and the clown show that was there. There were coaches that could not handle their business. You had one decent coach in Nick Saban, and then you had a bunch of coaches that really didn't handle their business. Michigan State was not a perennial contender to win the Big Ten. And some people said, hey, wait a minute, show Mark D'Antonio the proper respect. He gets big wins. He has the opportunity to do some things. And here's where I kind of want to address it. Look, we are all appreciative of Mark D'Antonio. He is one of the great Michigan State coaches. But it is valid to say some people like myself, some people that are supporters and staunch supporters of Michigan State, it's okay to say that once Michigan State started getting Big Ten titles, once they got into the playoffs, we now want to raise the expectation and say, how does that program look compared to Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State? Look, Michigan State is not that. But what's wrong with asking for, when you see your coaches and have schemes and you see the assistants and what they're putting out there, when you see a quarterback like Lewerke take a step back, there's a concern. There's always a concern when you don't see talented individuals meet their potential. And I do believe that Michigan State has the ability to play on par with their schemes with the best in the country, especially defensively. Now, when you look at it, they're bringing in great talent. Mark D'Antonio is a great coach. Why is it that they haven't returned to the playoff? Why is it that they're not being looked at like Michigan and talked about like that? Because when your strategy offensively is to pound the rock, you're not evolving. You're not doing the things that successful other programs are doing to be in the mix. Now, it's fair to criticize Mark D'Antonio because I asked this question and I'll ask you. I don't want a program now for Michigan State to be just 9-3, 10-2 every single year, and maybe once every 5 years make a run. I want to strive for what Ohio State has built, where game in, game out, whenever they lose, whenever Ohio State loses, it shocks the world. It's major news whenever Ohio State loses. Michigan State has taken on way too many losses to teams like Northwestern, Arizona State, Indiana, teams like that. We don't want to see that. And so that's why a lot of people complain when they see what has happened now this year with Michigan State because there was talent, young talent granted, but there was talent, and it's fair to criticize and ask for more from Mark D'Antonio. It's fair to say, look, that offense can be run and gun, exciting, fast-paced, different looks. It can be that, but it's not because they want to basically play old-school Big Ten football.
You asked a lot of questions there, and I'll try to answer them all. So, yes, it is absolutely fair. If anything, Michigan State fans should be like me. You should be never too high. You should never be too low, because this is what we've seen from Mark D'Antonio and his Michigan State teams, is that they can have the frustrating times, but they also have the absolute amazing times, just like this past Saturday against Penn State. It's fair to criticize Mark D'Antonio because even though he's gotten us this far, there is so much more, and the game has evolved that he needs to, at some point, evolve with the game. He can't just stick with the Dave Warner offense and pound the ball with, Cameron Hayward and trying to do jet sweeps. You had a talent in Brian Lewerke who, I think he was up for the Quarterback of the Year award in the beginning of the season. I doubt he's there now. So somebody at least thought that he was going to have a decent season. And, before all the injuries, we had a host of wide receivers that could, go out there and be great receivers. Felton Davis, the dude is a freak, and there's no lie with that. But then you guys have guys like Cody White, Darian Stewart, and I really do like Cam Chambers. I think he's been an unspoken guy. You have all this talent vertically, but you still just continue to go with the run game. So, thanks for that, John. But you have to evolve at some point. Nick Saban's even done it. A few years ago, even though that they were still perennial, contending for national championships, he wasn't happy with his offense. And you see now they have a guy who can stretch the field in Tua Tagovailoa, and that's what they're doing. They're blowing people out now. So why can't Mark D'Antonio do that? And to answer another question is, why aren't they in the talks of Michigan? Dude, we know this. People are never going to talk about Michigan State the same way that Michigan does. The only way we could ever get to that point is if somehow Mark D'Antonio becomes something that he's not. And he would have to be one of those big name coaches who's out there, who's outspoken, and he's, taking risks on players. We are where we are with Mark D'Antonio. I'm not sure if we're going to get too much further.
It's okay to critique Mark D'Antonio, and you don't get a badge for being an unconditionally supportive fan. That's the thing I think I'm getting annoyed with, is that just because you're a supporter of Michigan State and you got something negative to say, then you're not a true fan. Look, if we weren't true fans, we just would pick other teams. We just say, look, I'm an Ohio State fan now. I'm a Clemson fan, or I'm a Georgia fan. No, we stick with Michigan State, and we ask ourselves, how does Michigan State start to evolve and look like a contender more than just once every 4 years? And
when we had those run games, the
loss to Northwestern is unacceptable.
Well, we used to have an amazing offensive line. We used to have really amazing running backs. We've had a host of guys in Javon Ringer and Le'Veon Bell and LJ Scott even. And those guys, go back to Jeremy Langford. He was another great running back that came out of Michigan State. And we just don't have the personnel for that type of run game anymore. Not right now.
Okay, so you look at it and you say, when you look at Mark D'Antonio and that program, obviously we give him enough credit, but at the same time, do you think this level of play, especially on the offense, let's say it's a pounded out, running 35 to 40 times, are you okay with that? Like, do you see them just going, you know what, we just got to keep retooling, finding the right talent, stay healthy, and maybe be okay with a Big Ten run once every 3 years? Are you okay with that offense? Are you okay with the scheme that they're running, especially on the offensive side of the football?
No, I'm not okay with that. If that...
What can be fixed?
They need the personnel. I think what you need to do is you need to adjust your offense. Obviously they run a pro-style offense, but they lean more towards the run over the pass. And you need to have that the arsenal in the playbook. You need to be able to open it up. You need to go 3 wide receivers, go 4 wide. You don't have to go to a complete, run pass option offense. You don't have to go to a spread, a running gun, just the Hail Mary offense. But I want to see some of that. You can couple that with the run game. You can do all that. And don't go to the play action when you can't run the ball.
Exactly. And stop with these, typical run plays that get stuffed. And I think it was good versus Penn State. You saw a little bit of difference. You saw Felton Davis get utilized in the key moments. And sometimes you just got to feature the guy that brings you to the dance. You got to throw the ball to him quite a bit. You got to give the ball to Connor Hayward. You got to have Brian Lewerke step his game up. And he might have to single-handedly carry this team on Saturday noon versus Michigan. I think he has the ball in his court. I think that Michigan State's going to lean on that defense, and it might be the first team to get 2 touchdowns wins that game. I can't look at that offense and go, wow, it's really exciting, it's really innovative. And here's the thing, the way you look at it, exactly. This year, in 2018, prior to White getting hurt, that really sucked. But you know what? They had a combination of wide receivers that you would think, wow, throw the ball. Get the ball out there, run and gun, handle your business, be a little bit more innovative, utilize speed a little bit more, utilize some trick plays earlier and things like that. So it's interesting that he busted it out versus Penn State and he couldn't execute versus Arizona State and Northwestern, teams that really, in the end, Michigan State was better than. You're not supposed to lose those kind of games, and that's why people are saying, those that are critical will say, if Michigan State continues to lose those kind of games, you're never going to get a chance to win the Big Ten title again.
I think it's those you look at what the Lions of the past used to do. Those games when we were like, why aren't you throwing the ball to Calvin Johnson? The guy is a freak athlete. Just throw the ball to him and he's going to make a play. Same thing's happening with Michigan State.
Okay, so now you look at it and you say, it's this week. This is hate week. This is the big week. Michigan State. Michigan's coming in after a destruction of the Wisconsin Badgers. I was there in the big house. It was a great festive scene, a night game, and you can sense a little bit of a difference in terms of the fans, the excitement, everyone having a good time. Having tailgated all day and things like that, the fans were definitely excited. It was a fun atmosphere, and it was fun to cover the Michigan Wolverines, especially in a game in which they dominated. And now you have Michigan State coming in after a big win versus Penn State. A lot of people on paper, and Vegas looks at it right away, they opened up Michigan as a 6.5, 7-point favorite already against Michigan State. So that's kind of interesting. And you look at it and you go, man, if both teams, let's start with that, if both teams play their A game and they both bring it and there's no mistakes and it's not like a big coaching error and things like that, if they both play a decent game and it's a solid performance by both teams, you would say it's fair to think that Michigan has the edge just right now because of their talent and the way that they're playing, and Michigan State's too banged up in too many areas. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair to say, and I think I would say it's because of their defense. If their defense plays at the level that they can, then yes. But they're coming in banged up as well. Are they going to have Rashawn Gary?
Tariq Black, I think there's talk that maybe they'll be there, but I don't think they're going to perform because of the fact you don't just show up again in a physical contest versus Michigan State and just make your way on the field. They may be utilized, but I don't think so.
So, if you want to go A game against A game, I have to give it to Michigan.
Yeah.
I hate saying that, but I'm going with my brain right now.
But it's safe to say that Shea Patterson's playing a little bit better than Brian Lewerke, right?
I think you can say Patterson is playing better, but I also wouldn't say that he's playing like amazing. He's not the best quarterback in the country.
Come on, don't hate.
I am going to hate because I hate Michigan, but I think Michigan fans would at least admit that I think Shea Patterson obviously is the best quarterback they've had in the Jim Harbaugh era, but I think people expected him to come in here and light it up and throw for 300 yards and a couple touchdowns. Donovan Peoples-Jones, they had the big game against that cupcake, but what has he done since then? So I think this is really going to be the biggest test for Michigan. Michigan State, we have 2 losses. So we're pretty much out of any type of national title contention. Michigan, they're now talking about them possibly being in the talks of getting into the playoff if they can run the table. So this is going to be their first really big test because I look at Wisconsin and I see fraud. I see everybody in the Big Ten West. I see fraud. Wisconsin, They have a good running team, but Alex Hornibrook, come on, man.
Didn't complete a pass, I think, from the first quarter on until I think, early on in the fourth quarter. That's how bad it was.
So, I mean, Wisconsin, it's not a big test for me. Michigan, this is going to be the big game for them. If they can get past Michigan State, I think then it's basically going to be, if you can beat Ohio State, then you're finally at that level.
Two things that Michigan State has to do in order to get the W versus Michigan, and two things that Michigan has to do to get the W versus Michigan State. What are the keys?
I will say both need to, whoever has more yards rushing, they will probably be the victor, because you control the ball, you control the clock, you keep the defense tired. If you can do that, either team can win. For Michigan State, their second thing, they need to not have breakdowns on defense. They need to play a perfect game, because as we've seen with Shea Patterson, he is able to make plays with his feet. So we're going to have to not have any of those breakdowns that we had with Penn State, where the running back breaks free for 70 yards. So I think that would be the key for Michigan State. On Michigan, I think just the team as a whole, and really, actually, I would just go with Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh needs to coach a perfect game, because I think he's been the biggest detriment to that team against Michigan State than anybody else. Before I came in here, I opened up the ESPN app, and the first video on there was a look back at 2015 and the Michigan State and the trouble with the snap. And I look at that, I'm just, man, that was all Jim Harbaugh. He could have, just taken a safety and they would have been okay. So Jim Harbaugh needs to not mess up and not be a dumb coach.
Okay. What's your biggest worry about what Michigan State could do this Saturday? What's something that concerns you? Is it the fact that maybe the injuries? Is it Lewerke? Is it conservative coaching? Do you feel like maybe Michigan State can't keep up with Michigan if they do get rolling? What scares you about this game? What scares you that tells you maybe this Spartan team won't win the game?
I think what would scare me is if they start out with the run game and they clearly can't do anything, that they just continue to do that. Because I would like to think that if they realize early on enough that they can't do anything, and that Michigan's defense is able to crack down on the run game, that they need to open it up. They need to let Lewerke stand in the shotgun and get it to his receivers, because he can. He's probably going to overthrow some people. He might throw an interception or two, but if that's how you got to do it, you have to open up the offense.
Okay, so it's time. We've talked about it. Noon. Many people will say that's kind of a disrespect thing, but look, you have the number 6 ranked team in the country versus the number 24 ranked team in the country. I would have liked it to have been a 3:30 kick, but it's noon, and this Saturday, when it all shakes out, what's your game prediction for this Saturday?
I'm going to predict Michigan 23, Michigan State 26.
Oh, you give Michigan State the victory, huh? The disrespect card is played. You hope that it's a good contest. I do think it's going to be close. It's really hard to judge right now as we're recording this, but when you look at it, if Michigan plays well, I do think that they're going in a little bit under the radar in terms of they're not talking all that junk. There's no really bulletin board material as of yet. They want to handle their business. I do think that Michigan wants to prove that that offensive line can handle their business in big games. There's a lot of things that they want to cross off the board. They don't want to talk anymore about the fact that they don't win big games versus ranked teams on the road. Shea Patterson, they want to have him, really shine. They want to have Karan Higdon perform in a big game. They want Jim Harbaugh to not be talked about as a guy that can't win the big game. So I think Michigan's going to play well. And Michigan has a good taste, being 2 years ago, they were able to go to East Lansing and handle their business. But I look at it like this. Michigan State, after that victory versus Penn State, now is riding high. They're going to play a great brand of football. They're going to really try to run the football and stop Michigan's ability to run the football. And I do think this, if you can blitz, if you can get home on Shea Patterson and not let him survey the field and not let him take advantage of his ability to run the football, if you can make Shea Patterson, maybe go to his second, third, fourth option and give that defensive line a chance to get to him, I do think there's an opportunity for Michigan State to handle their business. Now, I will say this. I'm going to reserve my judgment because I am on several other podcasts. I am leaning toward, at this point in time in the week, toward Michigan. But as the week progresses, you know it's going to probably swing back toward the Spartans because it's going to be a good game. It's hard to tell. It's hard to make a prediction. So it's still early in the week, so I'm not going to make my official prediction as of yet. But I will say this. 12-3 will be a must-watch contest. It's going to be exciting. I don't think it's going to be a situation in which either team is going to blow the other team out. So I will say this. Put your mortgage on Michigan State getting the points. If you're getting 6 points, and Michigan State is, in fact, getting, I think, 6.5 right now, and 7 in some circles, go out there and put all your money on Michigan State. And if they lose, if they end up losing by more, Jason will cover it. Don't worry.
Yeah, okay, right.
Well, how would you bet it right now with Michigan? Let's say Michigan State plus 6.5.
Ooh, I mean, I guess I would take Michigan State.
You take the points, yeah.
Clearly.
No, Michigan State would get the points. So Michigan would have to cover by 6.5. They're favored. Michigan is favored early on, so we'll see what happens. All right, let's take our first time out. We'll come back. We'll discuss the Lions after the bye week. It was nice. I'm not going to lie. When the bye week happens right there in the middle of October, I would take that. 5 games in. Look, I'm not out there grinding for the next 11 weeks. I think it was great. Perfect time to kind of hang with the family. Perfect opportunity to take everybody to the cider mill. A great opportunity to hang with your family. So I think it's something worth noting around the time of when a bye week happens. But I do want to talk about your sense of the 2-3 Detroit Lions. Do you have more confidence after that victory versus Green Bay? Can the Lions handle their business on the road? Really in a situation in which they have to come back to Detroit with the victory. Stay with us. You're listening to the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Jason, I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a great place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic.com. At this point in time, Jason, we've recorded over 1,100 podcasts. We've only used one host site. And why do we use Podomatic? Really easy, super friendly, great customer service. We record great audio almost every single day, great interviews. Now we're covering sports all around town. We take all that great audio content and we upload it quickly to Podomatic so that all of our supporters across the country and even overseas can find us. So if you're looking to start a brand new project, you want to get in the podcast game, Doc, Jock, Vito, Jason, all the hosts here on the network, we're going to recommend you use one host site alone, Podomatic.com.
10 seconds to go. 4th and 2. Jim Harbaugh has to decide what he wants to do here.
Tell your punter to one step and get it out.
Oh, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State. Jalen Watts Jackson, and he scores on the last play of the game. Unbelievable.
Are you kidding me? Touchdown, LSU!
Michigan State is still the big boy on the block.
What the hell just happened? How do you...
Just a matter of catching it, punting it, or messed it up.
Paul Bunyan heads back to East Lansing.
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast. Do you remember where you were when that happened?
Yeah, man, I've shared a lot on this podcast. I was at a party, and I was the sole Michigan State supporter, and it was great when that happened because if you recall, when that happened, Michigan was pretty much dominating the whole game. Michigan State hadn't led that much in that contest, and then it happened. Everybody had assumed that Michigan was going to win, and I spun like a top. I was screaming. I was so excited. Probably one of the greatest moments I've had watching sports, so it's a very good situation in which you got to rub it into all the Wolverine supporters and that look of that fan putting his hand on his head. Just the shock of everybody seeing that. Just a moment that I'll never... I mean, it really, you probably could say in the rivalry, especially me as a fan watching it, I don't know if you can even top that unless, Michigan State this week blows out Michigan with all the hype. That would be awesome if it was like a 48-3 kind of game. That would be really awesome. But the way that went down, I would take that over a blowout.
Yeah, I mean, that game is probably on par with Michigan for the Braylon game. But I remember it was back when 105.1 was the sports station, and we were going to do a post-game show with Rob Pasco and Ron Crichton, and we're just sitting there, we're watching the game, we're figuring that we still got about another, 10 minutes. The game was about over. We were going to go through some commercials and then, get the post-game show started and talk to some people. But then it happened. I hear from the other room them just start to go nuts, and it was amazing. We immediately went on air. It was basically live from after it happened, and it was berserk, and it was probably one of my favorite times working in radio, to be there and to be able to actually hear from fans and get their live reactions from that game, because it's one of the great finishes in the Michigan State history.
OMG.
What a moment. What a moment that was. Oh man. And we hope for a lot of moments like that this weekend, Saturday at noon. Again, I believe it's on Fox. So interesting times for sure. Now let's transition, talk about the professional team that plays football. We haven't had a chance to talk about them too much, you and I together, but now it's a big week. This is a big week. I think coming after a bye week, you want to play a solid brand of football. You want to be 3-3 because you're going to have a tough stretch of games. I think a lot of people circled Miami and maybe considered that game to be a victory because of the fact that they got Ryan Tannehill. It's a team that's kind of inconsistent in their play, but they played really well versus Chicago and got the W. So I'm a little bit more concerned than I would have been on Friday, but you look at it and you say, now with the emergence of Kenny Galladay, the emergence of Kerryon Johnson, the ability of the secondary maybe to play a little bit better of a brand of bend don't break defense, forcing some turnovers, there's some things positively to talk about with the Detroit Lions, and I'm expecting a quality performance. I'm expecting the team to play really well this Sunday on the road. Do they get the W? We'll talk about that, but I do think they're going to play well, especially with what's been happening. You're starting to see the team improve a little bit under Matt Patricia. Am I right?
Oh, obviously, this team, ever since the first game, really, you started seeing improvements. The first couple quarters of the San Francisco game, it wasn't the best, but obviously towards the end, Matt Stafford and that offense was able to start getting it clicking, and I think they're definitely they were able to go out, beat the Patriots, you beat the Packers. You just have to capitalize on this. You're coming off your bye week. I think the worst thing that could happen this week is for them to go into Miami and just get blown out.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
That, it would literally be crushing.
Shut up.
It would be crushing for this team because you've essentially erased what happened week one. People have tried to forget. We still remember what Sam Darnold was able to do in his first ever game, but you have a chance now you get to 500, you get a road victory, which we don't have yet, and you start the second half of the season off on the right foot.
Yeah, man, it's one of those situations in which you go, okay, 2-3 at the bye week. It was good to take a week off. I spent it with the family a little bit, worked a little bit, and had a good family dinner, so that was a good Sunday. I didn't watch too much NFL football. I took a break completely, watched a little bit of that Dallas game. Wow, they performed really well. I saw a couple scoring drives from Jacksonville, but all in all, I didn't watch football as intently. I kind of took a week off and kind of relaxed. I missed, I guess I missed a solid Sunday night game that was going back and forth between the Patriots and the Chiefs.
There's a lot of field goals.
Yeah, a lot of field goals, but it was a back and forth game, a good game won by the Patriots, and you look at it and you go, wow, thank goodness we caught them when we did. But it's a situation in which this game, the Detroit Lions, you look at it and you go, okay, if utilized properly, there's some talent offensively that can allow you to get ahead of Miami. And then I think this Detroit Lion team plays so much better from ahead that why not take advantage of it? Why not utilize Kerryon Johnson for about maybe 18 carries? I mean, 12 carries, when we look at it on average, it's not enough. I think this guy can be a workhorse, but you did get a little glimpse of the concern that a lot of people have, and maybe they have in the organization. He kind of got nicked up a little bit late in the game versus Green Bay, did not finish the contest, but you know what? You can't play scared. You have to utilize your talent, and I think that currently they've been babying Kerryon Johnson. Let's go. It's after the bye week, should be rested up. Give the man 18 carries because he's averaging 4.5 yards or more per carry.
Yeah, and I would go, I'm not sure if 18 carries, but what I want to see is at least 18 touches. I think he needs to, whether it's a handoff or a toss out of the backfield, he's just as good, if not better, than Theo Riddick. You don't need to have Theo Riddick in there every time for passing downs. It just seems like whenever they get into that 2-minute offense, they always go to Theo Riddick. They need to let Kerryon Johnson get comfortable and let him be the safety valve, because we've seen what Theo Riddick can do, but this is a guy that we've spent a high draft pick on, and we want this guy to be the future of our offense in the run game. So let Kerryon do what he's going to do. We've already seen that he's got talent. He's able to. I remember watching the game, the last game, where he just beat the guy around the corner, and that's what we need. I don't see that from Theo Riddick. We need that from Kerryon Johnson.
And then everybody's talking about it right now. Kenny Galladay. People are asking the question, a lot of stories in the newspapers. Is he worthy of being known as number one wide receiver for the Detroit Lions at this point in time after 5 games?
I think you still got to. I think it's
you have doubt?
It's harsh. Well,
you should be like, yeah, man, right away.
I
yes,
can't call him the number one wide receiver. Not when you got guys like Marvin Jones and Golden Tate who have done it year in and year out for the Lions. Kenny Galladay, yeah, he's in a great stretch, and they've been featuring him a lot in the offense lately. But he's got to do it on a more consistent basis for me. If anything, I think you got a bunch of number 2 receivers who are really, really good. And until one of those guys really breaks free and establishes, and I will say that Kenny Galladay probably has the best chance, because we know what Golden Tate is. He's a yard after the catch guy. He's gonna break a bunch of big plays, but that's what Golden Tate is. You're not gonna see him go stretch the field. And then you got a guy like Marvin Jones who he's just gonna stretch the field, and that's what he's great for. Kenny Galladay has the opportunity to be that middleman, the guy who can go over the middle, the guy that can make all the small catches and make the short catches and turn them into large gains. So can Kenny Galladay be the number one wide receiver in Detroit? Yes, he absolutely can. Is he right now? No.
Okay, now everybody's talked about it. Everyone's a little bit concerned. Ziggy Ansah. How concerned should we be about the fact that he can't get on the field as consistently as we want? Because Adam raved about it. Because Adam ranted and raved about it, everybody's like, dude, we're paying you a big amount of money and you're not on the field. And it's cost the Lions the ability to maybe get a couple extra wins because of the fact they can't pressure the quarterback. The biggest weakness on the Lions, obviously, is stopping the run. So how much of a loss has Ziggy been? And do you expect him to contribute after the bye week a lot more than he did in the first 5 games?
Ziggy Ansah, he's dead to me.
Oh!
The only concern that I have for Ziggy Ansah is if we go into next season and we either franchise him again or sign him again for more than the league minimum, because he's shown he's not going to stay on the field. And I think it's questionable what he can actually do. He's got a motor, but when you think the best pass rushers in the league, the guys who are the sack leaders, I don't think of Ziggy Ansah anymore.
Thanks, pal.
It's just true. I think he had that potential when he was not hurt all the time. I'm not sure if he's ever going to get to that point again.
Wow. I do believe that the likely scenario is a bunch of cap money is going to happen next year for the Detroit Lions when you let go of Ziggy Ansah and Golden Tate.
No, probably what will happen is he'll go to the Los Angeles Rams and become amazing.
16 sacks and be part of a world championship team, right?
With Sue, Aaron Donald, and Ziggy Ansah.
Miraculously, he plays well and is healthy for another team, right? It's one of those situations in which I don't think he's doing it on purpose. This isn't DeAndre Levy, but it does raise questions in terms of the fact that why didn't Bob Quinn know this? Why didn't Bob Quinn realize that this guy's probably not going to see the field quite a bit? He's injury prone. He's getting it to be a little bit brittle. And your commitment to him was $17.5 million. Man, I mean, Adam knew it. And he told everybody, I'm concerned. You could allocate that money for more contributors, guys that can be on the field.
Anybody was going to pay that money, though. Yeah. It's the same argument you have for guys like Stafford. When you give him that amount of money,
but Jason,
somebody's going to pay him that amount of money.
Remember, Jason, the Patriot way, where they would let go of guys maybe 1 year too early as opposed to 1 year too late. You never really saw situations in which guys milked money from the New England Patriots. And you see a situation in which, look, Bob Quinn, his job is to be a miracle worker. He's supposed to kind of know, look, I got to make big decisions. And the interesting part is he's hitting on some free agents, hitting on some draft picks, but it's right at about a 50% clip, which you would expect, but you need more to be a successful NFL franchise. You got to hit on more draft picks. You got to hit on these decisions at a little bit of a higher clip. And this is a big violation if Ziggy Ansah continues to have this problem.
It might be the Patriot way. And yeah, Bob Quinn has seen what Ziggy Ansah could do, but who makes those major decisions in New England?
Bill Belichick.
I think Matt Patricia at least wanted to see what he could get from Ziggy Ansah. If he did come in, yeah, it was a ton of money to give him for the franchise tag, but you wanted to see what you could get. What if he actually came back and did produce? Mm-hmm. And I think it's you pretty much just have to eat that money.
Oh, just eat it and move forward. Okay,
it's the NFL. That's the new thing these days. Is you basically just have to eat it and hope that you're gonna get your return on investment.
Do you think Jim Bob Cooter calls a good game this week because of the fact that there's a lot of similarities between what's going on in the college game here with our teams in Michigan and Jim Bob Cooter, an offensive coordinator that sometimes you may be criticized for being a little bit too conservative, not utilizing that talent properly, not zinging the ball all over the place, and helping his team get ahead?
I'm going to be optimistic and say that this team is on the right track and coming off the bye week, that Jim Bob Cooter is going to know what to do. They've had time to see what the Dolphins are and what they do on defense, and I think he's going to call it a good game.
Yes, I hope he does.
I'd actually go as far to say that Lions opening drive, score a touchdown.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. In the nice weather, hopefully we have an opportunity to see Matthew Stafford zing the ball all over the place to Marvin Jones, complete deep passes, have an offense that looks good. Now, I know this is a sore subject for a lot of Detroit fans, but I briefly just want to get your sense of it. Eric Ebron, touchdown machine, man. He's a fantasy gold mine. Fine for my father-in-law. He was willing to draft him, and now he's producing a touchdown a game? What the hell, bro? That's shocking. Great for fantasy, but you look at it and you go, what's one of the weaknesses for this current 2018 Lions team? Red zone efficiency. It's getting a little bit better, but wouldn't it be nice to have a player that's doing what Eric Ebron is doing?
It makes me salty because he's doing it with the Indianapolis Colts, but I'm also not sad that he's gone because he wasn't doing that here. If he was doing that, doing what he's doing with the Colts with the Lions, he would still be here, but he's not. So it's just it's a product. You also look at the Indianapolis Colts and who do they have to throw to? When he was here in the Lions, last year you had Golden Tate, you had Marvin Jones, you had Kenny Golladay for a little bit, and then they would also throw to Theo Riddick. And Ebron was always just buried. He never lived up to that potential. On the Indianapolis Colts right now, T.Y. Hilton's hurt. So I think their number one wide receiver is Ryan Grant. So it's more just he's probably the number one or number two option right now because they don't have great running backs to throw the ball to. And Andrew Luck is a capable quarterback, so he's going to go to his number one, number two options. Right now, that's Eric Ebron.
Oh, all right. Give it to me. What's the score? Do the Lions come back to Detroit 3-3?
Yes, they do. They come back 3-3. I really want to just have him score a ton of points, but I have a hard time with that. I'll go, I will go that way. I'm going to go 34-24.
34-24 Lions, huh? They do get back up over 30. I hope so, too. I'm going to go a little bit less, though. I don't think it's going to be that high scoring over there in Miami. Give me the Detroit Lions 27 and give me the Dolphins 20. I think it's a touchdown game. They play well. Kerryon does maybe break out a little bit, and the Lions hold on. Miami will play a decent game. Which quarterback? I know Matt Patricia said early in the week that he's going to prep for both quarterbacks. I do think that the Detroit Lions are better than the Miami Dolphins, and he's got to go out there and execute and play well. Come back 3-3, and then maybe we can talk about renewed hope when we do our next podcast. All right, final thought I want to get regarding the Detroit Red Wings. Look, I'm all about this. Short and sweet. Hashtag lose for Hughes. I'm okay with it. I think I was one of the first to do it. I'm tweeting it nonstop at Detroit Podcast. Lose for Hughes. At this point in time when we're recording this, the Wings are going to play the Montreal Canadiens tonight. They're still winless. It's great. You can say they're a fun team and things like that. Whatever your take is on the Red Wings, I do think that, look, they've come out and said they are rebuilding. This year probably is looking like it could be as bad as advertised. It could be a situation in which they don't even hit 65 points, and that's a good thing. Look, even if you only have a 20% chance of landing Jack Hughes, Take it, man. I'll take it. Lose for Hughes, the situation in which you made the decision to send Zadina to Grand Rapids. Once you did that, I had no faith in this team being able to score consistently. And all you can ask for are performances that are a lot better than what we saw versus the Boston Bruins. Don't look like that, but in the end, Bernier, he's a guy that's probably going to get shelled a lot when he's in there. Jimmy Howard's okay, but it's a team that can't do a lot collectively as a team. And so with that said, hashtag lose for Hughes, I'm okay with that.
And yeah, when we talked about this initially, I am fine with what the Red Wings are doing right now. This is what I've wanted for the past 2 years. I've wanted them to shed all of that old dead weight. And I love Henrik Zetterberg, but the dude, he needed to be gone like 2 years ago. You know, even though he was like our best player last year. But we finally have young kids playing. We're seeing Rasmussen, we're seeing Bertuzzi play on a night in, night out basis. And I don't think it's not going to be as bad as the Boston game. I think anytime, 8 goals is just an anomaly. It makes very little sense to see a team score that many goals in a night. So you're not going to have that every single night. You may have that a couple more times during the season, but you also want to hope that they're going to start to figure some things out. There'll be a little bit more chemistry. And I think you're seeing just the inexperience right now of this team. It's going to help in the future because when all they were doing was getting ready in Grand Rapids, it was taking way too long. So now they're cutting their teeth in the NHL, and I think in the next couple of years we're going to start to see a better product. And if it takes losing a bunch and being at the bottom of the barrel, I'm okay with that. If it promises that the Red Wings are finally getting back on track and in a better place, I'm all on board.
Great podcast, sir. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You can follow Jason on Twitter at Jarvie the King. You can follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, if you have a strong opposing viewpoint, feel free anytime, 24 hours a day, leave us a voicemail, 248-579-8686. That's 248-579-8686. You can leave a voicemail. You've heard some already in the past 2 weeks. They're coming in strong. We greatly appreciate the passion. You can say whatever you want, however you want. We greatly appreciate all the support. Thank you so much for downloading the latest edition of the Motor City Sports Rant.
Peace out. Play the song.
Okay, nice idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.